Okay, thank you for tuning in today to watch me quilt. Alright, Abby, I'm going to teach you. We are making the crayon box. So we got these super cute fabrics. Woo! And the instructions say to cut 2 strips, 2 inches by 14 inches. So I'm going to measure this out. And they made it pretty easy for us. This piece right here is about almost 15 inches. And we've got this really ugly edge right here called the selvage. We're just going to cut that off till it's down to about 14 inches. So you place it on your mat and you measure over to 14 inches. Put your ruler down. Hopefully you have one of these. If not, you'll have to go visit Wendy and slice. So now I have a strip that is 14 inches by about 5 inches. So they asked for 2 inches by 14 inches. So we'll cut this. We'll cut 2 inches over, and we need 2 of those, so then we'll cut another 2 inches over. I'm going to fold it in half so it's a little more manageable. And I'm going to measure it over 2 inches. I'm going to make sure it's straight. And the fabric's on there straight too. So there's 1. I'm going to measure over another 2 inches. So I just measured over to the 2, and now I'll measure over to the 4, because that's another 2 inches over from my last cut. Make sure the fabric's on there straight and the ruler's on there straight. Okay, so I've got this little extra piece. That's about 1 inch. That's just scrap, so you can do whatever you want with that. So now we have 2 strips that are measuring about 14 inches by 2 inches. So that is what you want. So you want to do that from each fabric. So I'll have this left over. I could probably make another like quilt patch if I wanted to with the leftovers. We'll see. So I'm going to go ahead and do it with these other 3, and then I'll get back on the video and show you the next step. Okay, Abby, so once you cut all your fabric, you should have 2 strips from every pattern. I had enough to cut 4 strips, but I don't know if that was an accident, if they gave me too much or what. But this is what you need for your quilt block. So, according to the directions, you're going to make 2 different sets of, I don't know, fabric things together that you sew together. So they have it going from like darkest to lightest. You can do it however you want. It doesn't have to be darkest to lightest. I do think I'm gonna put, for me, I'm gonna put the red one first. I'm gonna kind of do it how I had it laying down here. And then this teal looking one, go with the navy. Sorry if my video camera's all over the place. I'm holding it with one hand and then using my other hand to show you. So that's what you want, and then you'll make that again, but you want it to match. So I have my red one first, so my next patch or little thing I'm sewing together is going to be red, and then again teal, and then yellow. Nope, not yellow, the navy. I have the navy one next. Okay, navy. Hopefully you're not getting motion sickness from how I'm holding the camera. Okay, so that's what you want. Once you've cut your 2 strips of fabric, you'll have 2 little sets of fabric to sew together. So next step, we'll come over to the sewing machine, and I'll try and set up my camera to show you how to do that, but I feel like you can figure that out pretty easy. Alright, okay, so we'll start by sewing this red one and this teal one together. And then once those are sewn together, we'll add on just one at a time. And then we just want the 4 sewn together, and then we'll do it again over with that set. But we're starting with just red and teal. So you want to put them so it's the right sides together. So you want the back side of the fabrics to show on the outsides and the right sides on the insides. Okay, Abby, so you have the same sewing machine as I do. So the default setting when you turn it on is 0, 0 stitch. So if you come over here and look at your little key, let's get into focus. So 0, 0 right there. That one has you all the way to the far left, and it kind of does a back stitch at the beginning. That's what that double dash is. It's going to back stitch just to make it stronger. So if you wanted to have your needle in the middle instead of the far left, you could go to 2, or I think if you go down to like 46, you could have it all the way to the far right. But typically 0, 0 is what you're going to want to have it on. So if you come over here, the instructions say to give it a 1/4 inch seam. So if you see where my needle's about to go down, it doesn't go right to the edge. It leaves a little bit of fabric left over in here. So see, I have it so it's just a 1/4 inch seam. So the thread's going to sew along, and then there'll be that little extra fabric on this side of the thread. You want that to measure a 1/4 inch. So on our sewing machine, if you have it set on 0, 0 for the setting, then you want to line that fabric up with that second little dash right there, and that is a 1/4 inch. That first little dash is an 1/8 inch, and to the edge would be another 1/4 inch, so that would be, or not, sorry, not another 1/4 inch, another 1/8 inch, so that would be 3/8 of an inch, which is also a pretty common seam allowance. So, but our seam allowance for this project is a 1/4 inch. So, excuse my long nails, I need to cut them. Okay, so now we're gonna sew it. I'll get started to show you on the video just to kind of show you how it goes along. But I'm gonna get off the video and do it here without having to do it one-handedly and sew it all the way through. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I just sewed it all the way through. So you lift up your foot and you bring it over here. Our blade on our sewing machine's back here. You can clip that little thread off. So you now have your 2 pieces of fabric sewn together. So if you open it up, and it looks so pretty all sewn together. Now it's going to want to keep flipping back, so at this point you'll iron it down. So you might want to have your iron going before you start sewing. So I'm going to iron mine down, and then once I do that, I will grab my next piece of fabric and I will place that one, wrong sides together again, along, because I wanted that one to be next to the teal. So I'll put it on top of the teal, wrong sides together, and then sew again. And we'll do that with all 4 strips of fabric. Oh, and you want to make sure to cut off any extra threads hanging around. I think that one's pretty short on that side, but this side is pretty long. That gets in the way, so I suggest cutting it after each time you sew. So, alright, I'll be back for the next step. Okay, I've sewed the navy one on. Now onto the last piece for this set as the yellow, and I want that to be below the navy one, so I'm going to sew it together right there. Again, I'll iron it, and I'll do the same with that set over there. Okay, Abby, so I have sewn those 2 fabric sets together, and so now you should have 2 matching sets. So make sure mine is red, teal, navy, yellow. Whatever you decided to do, just make sure they both match, because they need to be the same order to have the look. So once you have that, you can look at the instruction page. It says you're going to cut each of those, so you'll get cut 6 1/2, 6 1/2, and then the second one the same thing. So you'll have four different squares, and then we will be rearranging them to make a crayon box. So I'm going to go set the camera up so I can cut these because I do need both my hands for that, and then we can go from there. So at this point you have your two fabrics like this, and they need to be cut into 6.5-inch squares. So let's get started. I'm just going to cut one at a time. You could layer them and cut them both at the same time, but I don't know. I just don't want to mess something up. So you're going to measure over 6.5 inches, so line it up just so. And you want to make sure it lines up along both the vertical line and the horizontal line. So, okay. You can measure over 6.5 inches. Okay, perfect. Slice. Okay, then another 6.5, which would be 13 total. So I'm gonna measure over to the 13, right? Yeah. So make sure the fabric's lined up just so. The ruler's lined up just so. Okay, and slice. Okay, you'll have some leftover scrappage. Just throw it away unless you have a project in mind that you want to use it for. So I've got two so far. Look at that, beautiful, beautiful 2 6.5-inch squares. Okay, do that with my other one. You don't need to sit there and watch it, so I'll turn off the video and then we'll come back when we... Okay, I forgot to tell you one thing. If for some reason you didn't sew very evenly and they're looking a little off on both edges, what you can do, now remember that little extra scrap you had left over, you have some room to play with. So what you can do is you can fold it in half like that and then cut the edges, and then it'll be pretty straight. Mine are pretty straight, so I'm not going to do that, but it's something to kind of help if it's a little bit off or something. So tip of the day. Okay, so there you have it. You cut up your fabrics. You should have 4 now. So 4 of those 6.5-inch squares. So if you look at the instructions, if you remember, I had my red one on the top, so we'll kind of be looking, they have dark blue on the top, so that would be, you know, the equivalent, I guess. So if you look at how to place it, we'll just look where the dark blue ones, and that's which direction I want my red ones to be. So on this first square right here, the red is on the far left side and it's going vertical. The second one, the red one, well, or dark blue equivalent, is on the top and it's going horizontal. So that's already like that. Okay, the next one, the red is on the bottom going horizontal. So I'm gonna flip that around. Boop. And the last one, you'd see that my red fabric should be on the far right going vertical. So boom, that is what your quilt block will look like when you're done sewing. So you're gonna start, we're gonna sew these two together first. So right sides together. I only have one hand to line them up, but obviously once I have 2 hands, I'll line them up a little better. We'll go sew them together along here. Remember 1/4-inch seam. And then when we come back, those two will be sewn together, and then you'll do these two. And once you do that, then we'll sew all along there. So let's finish this up. Okay, so I just sewed the next set together, but before I ironed it down, I wanted to show you something. So I ironed this seam. See this little extra fabric, the seam? I ironed it going that way. So I want to iron this one going the opposite way, because then when I put these together to sew, the seams will fit together a little bit better. So little tip, when you're going to sew seams together like that and they're going to cross pass, it's easiest if you have them going opposite directions. Okay, so also another tip I wanted to give you is that you might want to move your blocks around a little bit. Some might be shorter or longer than others, even though they're all approximately 6.5 inches. Just the way it is when you're sewing, you may go a little more or less than a 1/4 inch on some, and it may come out a little bit off. So you can play around, move them around, see which ones fit together better. So I had this one, and the one I originally had next to it was a little too short for it, and it would have worked, but I switched my blocks around and found one that kind of fit along that length a little better. So just another tip. So I'm gonna iron that down, and then after that we will sew along here. Well, if I had 2 hands you could see that a little better, but we'll sew along that length and then iron that down and we should be done. Alright, I just sewed that last length together and we now have the finished Crayon Box block. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. So it looks great, and good luck on doing yours, Abby. Love you. Bye. Okay, Abby, I'm back at the sewing machine. So after sewing and just going through it all, I think this line I told you to go to before isn't so much a 1/4 inch as it is to go in between these 2 lines. So you'll line it up here and just make sure you're within those 2 lines on your foot. So if you go all the way to the edge, your seam might be slightly too large, and just thought I'd want to let you know that, so you don't have the same problems I did. Alright, bye.